sudden storms have rendered even the most modern ships inoperable. Mother Nature is all-powerful, and these ships found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time. Here are 15 ships caught in horrible storms. Number 15. The CDR Wide Blue. The CDR Wide Blue is an Italian-flagged cargo ship that, since it was launched, has been responsible for transporting containers across Europe and the Mediterranean. Despite being more than familiar with the waters, even a ship like this can find itself in trouble. And that's exactly what happened in December of 2019 as it was sailing around Sardinia. With 12 crew members on board, it was traveling between Cagliari in Italy and Alicante in Spain, when a huge storm developed and waves began crashing against the hull. There was nothing the crew could do, as the 8,000-ton vessel wasn't powerful enough to fight against the currents and was swept into a cliff in Torre Canai, Santa de Coco. On their approach to the shoreline, the crew sounded the alarm, and the Coast Guard was soon on the scene. Footage captured from the rescue vessel and helicopter shows just how vicious the waves were, and conditions were so bad that they made a rescue operation extremely difficult. Luckily, all of the crew were eventually evacuated, and amazingly, the vessel only suffered from light damage. Once things calmed down, salvage operations began to retrieve the cargo, and the vessel was finally refloated and towed to a dock for repairs. Number 14. The USS Kitty Hawk. It's not often that you get to see footage taken from a U.S. warship, but in 2018 a video was released that was recorded on the USS Kitty Hawk and showed how serious a storm can be, even for some of the largest vessels on Earth. Aircraft carriers like this are 1,068 feet long, 257 feet wide, and displace more than 97,000 tons. It's 244 feet above the ocean surface, which is the equivalent to a 24-story building, and its anchors weigh an incredible 66,000 pounds. Add to that the 4 propellers that weigh 66,000 pounds each and are powered by 8 steam boilers, and what you've got is one of the sturdiest and most capable ships there is. With a crew of around 6,000 people, it's more like a floating city, and while this weight and power means it's normally able to steam through waves and storms, even it can meet its match. In the video, the waves being whipped up by the storm are so huge that they crash over the bow and cover the flight deck. You can see a Black Hawk helicopter and an F-18 Hornet that have been tied down onto the platform. But even knowing they were secure, the crew must have wondered whether they would endure the forces of the storm. If this had been any other ship, then the waves would have spelled disaster. But the Kitty Hawk continued on its mission with hardly any delay at all. Number 13. The Bay of Biscay. The Bay of Biscay, which is along the southern French and northern Spanish coastline with the Atlantic, is notorious because of its unpredictable weather. Any sailor familiar with the waters will know how important it is to keep an eye on changes there, because things can change with no warning at all. The problem, though, is that it's a vital route for travel and trade in the region, and it's impossible to avoid passing through it. You simply have to pray the seas will be forgiving as you're traveling across the bay, but these wishes aren't always granted. In late 2017, a passenger ferry was struck by a particularly strong storm, which generated waves that were up to 30 feet high. They threw the ship from side to side, and it was utter carnage inside, with winds ranging to speeds of 100 knots. Passengers fell to the ground, tables, cutlery, and other objects rolled across the floor, and for a moment, the hundreds of people on board were left fearing for their lives. According to the ferry operator, there was never any risk to the stability of the vessel, and while there was certainly a bumpy ride, there weren't any serious injuries, and the passengers reached their destination on time. Number 12. Navy ship in the Southern Ocean. With far fewer land masses to break the paths of waves, the wind and storms of the Southern Ocean is renowned for being one of the most treacherous stretches of water in the world, and it's there that the record for the highest wave ever detected was measured. The lack of land means that ships don't travel across the ocean as much as elsewhere in the world, and those that do can be in for an eventful time. This footage was recorded by a New Zealand Navy ship in late 2015 and shows just how crazy the conditions can become. The HMNZS Otago was on a 3-week maritime surveillance operation in the ocean, and around a week into it found itself in the middle of a storm with winds that reached almost 100 miles an hour and swells that reached up to 50 feet high. The ship rode over the peaks and crests of the waves, and as it splashed down, so much water was sprayed up that it obscured everything from view. In an interview after the footage was released, the captain said that during the mission they experienced everything from blue skies and open water to thick fog, snow, and moderate ice conditions, meaning it's definitely not somewhere to even consider going if you suffer from seasickness. Number 11. The Viking Sky. Millions of people travel each year as close to the Arctic Circle as they can in the hopes of being able to see the Northern Lights. But one of the most luxurious and enjoyable ways to do this is by a cruise around the Nordics. One of the best ships that regularly travels this route is the $450 million Viking Sky. But in March of 2019, things took a frightening turn. While it was off the coast of Norway, the ship, with 1,373 passengers on board, suddenly lost all engine power and was stranded in the sea with a storm approaching. It was subjected to 26-foot-tall waves, and the crew were unable to steer it into the storm to reduce the force of the impact. A number of passengers were injured as tables and chairs were flung across the decks, and even parts of the ceiling began to collapse. They realized they were in real danger when some of the decks of the cruise ship began to flood, and all